We have, well, our agenda is not that long, it's not even as full as it looks, because we cannot have the climate action update. The speaker couldn't come here because of the Dominic couldn't make it because of the rail strike. So we will begin with the open forum, which we've been notified of. Yeah. So here's another councillor. Do you want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Yeah, I'm Councillor Mike from Abbey Ward.
I wasn't trying to highlight the fact you were late, I just got to it. Right, okay. So the open forum. So, Regina, I think you want to say something, don't you, first?
Yes. I mean, I had already mentioned last time about Dundonald Recreation Ground and the bins. The mess that is in the park. And I mean, the other day, there's blind man Simon, his guide dog, and he's still training the guide dog. He's still a young dog. I'm afraid he got hold of a nappy, so he had to take him to the vet and get him sorted. And things like that. It's just sort of, something like that shouldn't really happen. And then also something that's really started up lately is those line bikes, those green bikes. They just, I'm all for people using bicycles, that's very good, but I mean, people leave them in places where, in the middle of the pavement, just round a dangerous corner, and again, blind people's pushchairs, it's just sort of a nuisance. And I think there are some London boroughs where the council then sort of takes these bikes away, I understand.
Just to quickly come back on both of those, obviously I'm not here to speak for the council, but on behalf of Dundonald Rec, the Friends group, of which I'm the vice chair, recently got some litter picking equipment and some other stuff, so we're going to organise some litter picks. We're also trying to work with ID Verdi about emptying the bins and keeping that a bit more clean. ID Verdi believe that residents dump domestic waste in the bins.
Yes.
And they say they can't keep on top of that, but we're trying to work with them to kind of sort that out. On line bikes, completely agree with you. It's great to see people use them, absolutely fantastic. But anything that relies on people to be careful and put them in a good place it doesn't seem to be working. What's interesting is that the council is negotiating with a couple of providers of dockless bikes, of which Lime is one. But up until the beginning of September, the council was actually completely unaware that Lime was actually in the borough. I think Lime tried to get in. The officer in question told me, told me they didn't know. I think Lime have tried to get in before the arrangement and get themselves off the ground. So the council is aware, they were raising with them. I am also meeting with Lime and one of our London Assembly members on the 10th of October, and we're going to try and take them to task a bit about the lack of communication and the way they're approaching it. Some of it's to do with where they put their geo-fencing, which is their online kind of restriction of where the bikes can be. The border goes right the way through the middle of Collier's Wood, Wimbledon and Rains Park, and you often get the bikes all along the edge of the border. That's the answer to some of that.
Is there any form of licensing involved at all?
That's an interesting question.
You can sort of take over in it.
So what I've been told is no, that you can do what you like, but then again, I think if I left bikes all over the place, it'd be taken away as fly tipping, so I'm not quite sure how they get away with it. But the council does expect to license them. My understanding is the council expects to have an agreement with the companies to use the bikes in the area, but obviously that's not happening at the moment.
No, with sanctions.
There's talk of a contract, so I'm assuming there'll be an arrangement as to how they're allowed to be used and where they're allowed to be put and that kind of thing. That's certainly what I'll be encouraging them to do.
I believe it's Westminster Council or it's Kensington and Chelsea, which have had a similar problem. They collect each bike as a flight tip. If Lime wants them back, Lime have to pay for it. So you may want to consider something in the contract that says that any bikes left outside your and they're collected by the council will be chargeable back to them. So you can make it into a bit of a money spinner.
I know that Westminster have come down really hard on it. I know, and yeah, you're right. That's exactly what they're doing. I'll feed it back to the council. Obviously, I'm not responsible for what they do. We'll feed it back.
I have one thing to say. Anyone can sign up to get paid to move the bikes through line. So if you had some allocated people who did that,
Yeah,
and you had a few people who did that in each local area.
I didn't know that, so yeah, that's a great idea. Good thing to do.
Well, regarding the bins in Dundalk, I think it's also the type of bin. Because it's a bit open at the top, so the foxes get in at night. And maybe somebody needs to look at the design of the bins in the parks generally, I think. It's
When we had our green flag assessment, that was one of the things that the chair of the Friends group said. It's one of the things we're following up on. We've got a meeting with the council to talk about all the great things that they promised that they do to get the green flag. So we're going to hold them to account and make sure all those things happen. And we can definitely look at that. We were also looking at maybe more playground equipment, some plans to make the kind of wildflower meadow area along Avebury Road a bit nicer.
yeah.
Maybe looking again at the Holocaust Memorial Garden. So lots of kind of ideas, but yeah, bins, I agree with you.
And what about enforcing the 20-mile zone, the 20-mile limits in residential areas? Because we've had in our road a couple of months ago, somebody really drove into somebody's car, hit the pavement. If somebody had been on that pavement, you know, who knows what would have happened. A couple of months before that, a dog was killed. The council says, unless the person gets killed, we can't do anything.
So we had that exact chat about your road with the council officers, and they said exactly that unless somebody is killed or injured, they won't do sort of any kind of traffic harming measures. So I raised that with the cabinet member for transport at the last committee meeting. He said exactly the same thing, but one of the officers said that's not quite the case. It's one of the ways that they increase the priority of a road. So that gives us some wiggle room. So I think you're right that there's something to look at there with regards to Kingswood. You know, in terms of enforcement more generally, it's the police that enforce the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, not the council. And there are some moves, I think, across London to try and get the power of enforcement down to councils. Obviously, that might be unpopular as well, because then obviously the council will begin fining people.
Yes.
But you know, just to be aware. Yeah.
Just say, Anthony, anyone can actually just contact the police and ask them to launch a speed watch. So if you want to sort of come down and the laser gun and just monitor the speed and issue warnings, then that could do that.
I said in my experience of trying to organise that, it is not the easiest sounds. I have been talking about doing that in various roads, I found problems, and I've been told things like it was done or we didn't have enough time. So it's not a guarantee, but it's worth trying.
But on the major roads, they're not putting speed cameras on the Alexander.
No, I have tried and what I have been told.
On the speed cameras issue, in defence of the council, the speed cameras, the cost, the council could put them in, but all the fines on speed cameras go to the Home Office. And of course, therefore, there is a real cost issue for councils doing it. To put them in. And that's something I know local councils are lobbying about. It's ridiculous.
I've been promised some possible signage, because there's bidding going on with TfL to improve speed signage. So you may get some down the road, maybe, but it's really very difficult to actually enforce 20-mile limits. Yeah, I think we probably all want it, but not making progress.
I've not handed the microphones around because it always inhibits conversation or dialogue, but please can everyone speak up? I can hear people trying to hear. Just to be clear on line bikes, are the council closed to do anything, do you know, at this stage?
The council are in negotiation with two companies,
Yes.
and there'll be some form of contractual arrangement. With regards to Lime, they are following being told that Lime were here. They were going to get in touch with them and try and make them clean up their act, but I've not heard anything since.
Maybe when Eleanor is here later for the update from the council, you might raise it there, Regina?
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else have anything they want to raise in the open forum?
Excuse me,
Yes?
hello, I've never been here before, I should have been, I've been here about 25 years. I live in the Battles area, and I understand that there is a meeting next week with the Friends of Havens Road to try and limit the freedom that a dog has in our park, to put it on leads at all time. And I just wondered what the view is of the forum here about putting dogs on leads for all parks, because I certainly wouldn't want to be supporting that, because my dog would be very upset.
Does anyone know anything more about this? I know nothing about
I'd
this.
say some parks should have dogs off leads, some parks dogs on leads. That's certainly one.
Can I ask, how is that determined? It's not determined.
They have to be under your control at all times, that's the only regulation there is.
So we have something related to that particular wreck. We need more bins, it's the same as Dundonald. I think the number of dogs has skyrocketed since COVID, and a lot of the wrecks are not only used by local people, but they're used by people outside the area, because I go to different areas with my dog. And I think one solution to a lot of, dog poo is having more bins and having them cleared more regularly, because at the moment we're about every 3 or 4 days. So instead of telling people put your dog on the lead, anybody who's not wanting to clear up their dog muck isn't going to do it whether it's on a lead or not. So I think the solution, we all look after each other, we all clear up each other's poo. If somebody's dog has done something, we normally tell them, it's over there, or we clean it up ourselves. So I think one of the main issues to avoid going to a dog lead situation is having more bins. The bins are always littered. There's always a lot of stuff there. There's fly tipping issues as well. People bring their own rubbish from across the road and putting them in the bins and filling them up. So that's something we really need for the wreck, is more bins and a more regular system by Deliveries to actually clean those bins. And that would really help a lot. Because I think there's a small number of dog walkers who may not be responsible, but the vast majority of us really do look out for each other, really help each other, and want the area to be clean. So I think it would be very punitive to punish us all for a few who are still going to carry on doing it. But I think bins would be a definite plus.
Any non-councillors
I
first?
cannot take a little bit more.
Oh, God.
Well, other than the most recent batch of public space protection orders that were in relation to dog control, I think the things that were passed was, not surprisingly, about fouling, not having more than 4 dogs, and being directed to put a dog on lead by a council officer or representative if asked to. So there aren't any sort of blanket restrictions as far as I'm aware at the moment. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be in the future. But, so currently it stands as, if you're asked to put your dog on the lead, then you are required to do so, or could be subject to a fine.
Thank you.
Sorry, Regina and then Anthony.
Yeah, just about the dog lead, because apparently Dundonald Rec, some part of Dundonald Rec, the dogs need to be on a lead, but it's not very well signposted. So occasionally people get caught out, and other parts, other areas of the park you can leave them off the lead, and some areas you have to put, but it would be nice to have actually signs on all entrances to tell you where you have to put the dog on the lead.
Yeah, I've never seen it, so
I think the main restriction is usually playgrounds, where there's just no dogs full stop, so
Yes.
I'm aware of it being.
But it's opposite that entrance there, the rose garden. There's a sign there, but nowhere else.
Anthony?
I can answer that point specifically, but more generally on the dogs, I think the Friends group don't have the power to ban dogs. The council does. It can put there's a facility for placing a restriction zone, but I think, as Chris said, there aren't any parks where that applies. But the Friends group itself won't be able to do that unilaterally. unless Mike, you were in cabinet, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right. No. Specifically on the sign in Dundonald Rec, Regina, that sign I think is a mistake, and we actually got an FPN reversed.
Really?
Because that sign isn't right. I think it's the playground only, it's not the rose garden, I think.
Yeah, because a couple of people got fined.
Yeah, we did get at least one of those reversed because the sign was in the wrong place, I think, from memory.
Any other comments on that?
Please.
No.
I just think perhaps there has to be an acknowledgement and a recognition that in some gardens and parks there are areas which are being well looked after and tended by community gardeners as well as council operated gardeners, and wouldn't necessarily want random dogs running through the planting, that sort of. So I think it's fair to ask for some sort of control over the animal. You know, they do run around, which is fine, so they should. But we also spend quite a lot of hours keeping the planting in some sort of order.
Is there a specific problem in any park at the moment?
Well, there isn't in South Park Gardens where I spend time. I mean, that is Dogs on Leads provision, isn't it? So I'm not aware of anything else apart from South Park. So.
Shouldn't there be a distinction between gardens and recs?
Yeah.
I think.
I think informally that's what's happening, isn't it, in reality?
Yeah.
South Parkland has that rule, the reg doesn't. It strikes me as a good compromise at this stage.
Hi, my name's Adam Tom. I'm from South Park Gardens. I just wanted to bring up something about the centre court. There's been a lot of talk on next door about the future of Wimbledon, how the centre court has really deteriorated over the last half decade. I shared my view with the developers, but the current plans for the shopping mall is that it's going to be a lot of businesses, no major magnets, but people who can afford to spend over £2,000 on a gym. And I was just discussing with a load of my friends and people of my age bracket if that really represents Wimbledon to them. You know, because there is no shopping brands that we will affiliate with, and compared to the other competitors such as Wandsworth Southside and Kingston Pendles, it's not really demographic at young people, and I just think it's a shame how the direction it's going.
My understanding on that is that they're going to go for a range of things there to attract, and they want to, you know, they bought that shopping centre, they want a commercial success. I understand they're going to make a destination with various things there, aimed at different ages. Have you tried talking to them? Because they are very open to listening to views. If you speak as a young person, this is my perspective, I'm sure they'll give you time. Isn't that true, Craig?
Yeah, I would definitely support that. And I know there are further announcements pending that are imminent, which I think might be more reassuring to people on the third space, which is clearly a very luxurious gym brand. And there will be other businesses and other agents, demographics and price points coming into the centre.
Something I saw had some virtual golf.
Yeah.
There's a virtual golf.
But it's also very much, my impression again, it's really very much experience based rather than retail outlet, I understand.
Yeah, I think
But
there are going to be some retailers, some food and beverage outlets, and some other experiential announcements quite soon, as we understand it.
Okay.
So, yeah, maybe for Alex, the next forum might be a good idea.
Well, maybe, yes, maybe we should get them along. That's a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get them along, give a presentation on what they do. Would that make sense? And that would help them publicise the whole thing. You know, at a very general level, I was very impressed by their initial presentation. Was that 6 months ago? Like 6 months ago. And clearly, you know, they wanted to be a success. It's no good if it doesn't attract people. So I'm sure you will have their in. If I get them along to one of these sessions, we can have a proper discussion. Yeah.
There's a really great video I don't think Paul that went out last month with the retractable roof in operation on the factory site, which comes in next quarter sometime. So it's a 14-metre square retractable glass roof which will open into the courtyard space they're creating in the summer months, and it looks sensational from
And that's on the website, their website.
I saw it on the Wimbledon Newsy Instagram feed, but Alex showed it to me in Best Business School, so it's out somewhere. I'll find it.
We'll try and get that onto our Facebook site.
Yeah, it's hugely impressive when it's there. I think that's meant to be on site by the end of this year. Most of the new developments, like they're talking spring, summer next year. And you'll see at the moment they're re-engineering the site quite a bit, moving some of the shops downstairs and upstairs to recalibrate it to bring some of the big new developments on board. So there's a lot of sort of jigsaw action going on at the moment with shops being moved around. They moved Pandora this week from upstairs to downstairs. So things are constantly moving in the centre at the moment.
Hi, my name is Susan Cusack. I'm the chair of the Belvedere Estate Residents Association. Can I just ask about any update on St George's House, so the redevelopment of the buildings above Starbucks, etc.?
Nothing, as far as I know, has happened. The mayor still hasn't.
So it's still with GLA?
Hasn't gone. My understanding is it hasn't yet been referred. The Section 106 agreement hasn't been completed, but the expectation is that it will go through soon, anyway now. And as soon as we know, we'll tell you.
So you say it hasn't gone to the mayor?
It has to be referred to City Council, but before it's referred to Section 106 agreement, which is all about how much the developer pays and for what, has to be formalised and completed, and that's been a long, slow.
But 6 months ago, it was up on the mayor of London's site, for us to make comments on. So I don't understand how that means it hasn't been referred. They put it on their site and said it had been referred.
I don't know either, but it hasn't.
I know we've asked our representatives on the London Assembly if he was informed of any developments there. And as I said, Susie says nothing's happened.
I'm communicating with the officer on the case and head of planning, I'm just waiting to hear.
Sorry, when you said go through, were you referring to Section 106 going through, or were you assuming that the planning application may go through?
The planning application went through in February, but
With
because
an
it's more
approval?
than 30 metres, it has to be referred to City Council.
Oh, so you approve something that's not in it, that's outside your policies on heights of buildings?
Council do what the council wants, and that's what they did.
Maybe the other councils have to argue more effective.
It was the most outrageous planning committee.
Council don't work like the chair.
It's available without. It's available on YouTube, the planning committee. So I suggest you see it and you look at the voting. Is what I would say to you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Any other? I saw the hands up.
I just wanted to add to the gentleman's point. It's quite difficult for developers per se to get retailers and food and beverage outlets into a new development. It's normally the agents, and at the moment, because of the cost of business rates, etc., you are unlikely to get the brands that you want to, because the brands will decide where they want to place their shops. It's not the other way around. It's not developers telling the brands, you've got to come here. It's the brands saying, actually, that's not part of our strategy.
I'm sure that's true. Any other point we want to raise?
Just briefly, tree pits. Who is responsible for allowing trees to be tarmacked right up to the trunk or the bottom without leaving a decent sized space? Who in the council is responsible for that? Because you stop Conway, you ask them why they're doing that, and they say they're following instructions and they've got a plan, and they show you what they're doing, and it's there in black and white. So it comes directly, not from Conway, but from the council, and that really needs to be dealt with. We talk about climate change, we talk about having our own policies, and we don't actually apply them at all on the ground. So who's responsible? Who's the person?
It's Highways who made this decision.
So when we talked to them about this in the Apostles, the answer was that it's the Highways Department, and the Highways Department were doing it to avoid trip hazards, and then they were told by Street Trees that they had to leave a certain space, and that was supposed to be what was then going to happen. If it's not still happening, I suggest you raise it with Eleanor when she comes, and you know, we can get the council to answer for why that's not happening, because obviously, you know, most of us in this room are just, you know, backbench councillors. We don't make the decisions on how these things work. But my understanding is it's the highways department telling people it's trip hazard.
Yes, but it can't be a trip hazard right up to on every single, you know, 2, 3, 4
No,
metre
I would agree with you,
wide
but yeah.
pavement.
Again, raise it with Eleanor in a few minutes.
Yes.
Well, she's going to get it right.
Got any fruit to dish out to us? Got any fruits to dish out, to throw at her?
Sorry?
Got any fruit or vegetables to throw at her, to dish out?
Anything else we want to raise? Okay. Eleanor's here at 8. I'm going to give... I'm going to give an update on the street names motion, and then Craig's going to give an update on Love Wimbledon, aren't you? So, those who some of you were here last time, some weren't. We had a discussion about street names, some of which are named after historical figures in Wimbledon who were slave owners. And I reminded the meeting that forums can put a motion before council, and the forum last meeting did pass a motion that was raised, that was put to the council. Let me read you its terms. Very short, it's not very long. So the motion that we as a forum put to the council in July was the Wimbledon Community Forum notes that some roads in Wimbledon are named after former residents who were slave owners. The forum calls on Merton Council to consider including historical information in the vicinity of such road signs, including the fact they are named after slave owners. The point was made, I thought, in a rather excellent debate, that people weren't trying to hide from history or neglect history, but add to history. It struck me as a good motion that was put forward. So can I just say something on that point?
I was just wondering what the names were and where they are.
No, well,
So it's Drax Avenue, Merriott Road, Merriott Place, and Drax.
Now I'm going to say something, and I think you might want to say something as well, on behalf of the Conservatives, and maybe Labour want to say something, because I'm going to say something from my perspective. My view of these motions is that I was a delegate on behalf of the forum. I wasn't a politician on behalf of the forum. I was a delegate, and my idea was that it would be proposed by me and seconded by my colleagues in other parties, so that it went as we were delegates of the forum putting this to the council. My view was I spoke as a delegate, no matter what my views were. I happened to agree this time, but that's not the point. I spoke as a delegate of the council. My view was that in another time there might be a motion I didn't agree with, which was still passed by a forum. My view would then be again, I think there should be cross-party proposing from the forum to the council. Again, as I, as chair, would speak to the motion, but I wouldn't feel constrained to vote for it if I disagreed with it. So I would be very much just your delegate in that role, as a politician voting on it. So that was my position. It was proposed by me, it was seconded by Eleanor, but you didn't feel comfortable with seconding it, did you? On behalf of your
and what we didn't expect was what your premise of how this would go down. If the premise is how you described it, that should have been really made clear beforehand.
Well,
we were not expecting to need to second it. Any normal motion requires a proposer and seconder. It would be better going forwards, if that's the approach one wants to take, then at least we know for next time. But our side wasn't very comfortable with that due to the impact on particular residents of the road, and it wasn't made clear. There weren't safeguards in that, and we were very nervous about how that would be felt by those residents on the particular roads in question.
Right.
And we couldn't in good faith then vote for it at the meeting. But we wasn't expecting to second it. That wasn't made clear to us beforehand. So if we're going to have ground rules and a ground game, then that needs to be made clear ahead of time.
Okay, well, now is not the time for a spat, but I did have this conversation with your lead on exactly those points, so maybe he did communicate it to you. But the point is, this has been in the Constitution for years and never used. And, you know, I came across it when I was on a Constitutional Working Party and saw it was there. And I think it's a way of bottom-up democracy. You know, not all councillors, not even on my party, like the idea, but I think it's good for the forum to actually be able to put a motion to the council in this way. Now, the council subsequently, you might want to speak on this, Mike, the council have subsequently changed the rules to say that these motions can be amended, because the way they were in the Constitution, the timing meant they were unamendable. Now, I think that was, and this is where you might want to comment, Mike, I thought that was sensible, because I thought the whole point was it was a motion from the forum, it wasn't there to be amended, it was either to be agreed with or disagreed by the council. But now it can be amended, of course, only by councillors. Mike, do you want to comment on that?
Well, my comment will be, and I've not got any particular situation in mind, but it could be that a forum would pass a resolution that actually couldn't be put into practice, because there are not officers here to advise on whether something's practical, legal, or possible. So therefore, the opportunity to amend it so that it could take forward the spirit of what the forum wants, but actually put it in terms of what is possible to be put in place, rather than just vote it down, because technically it couldn't happen. So I think that it's given that we're looking potentially at more resolutions coming forward, there needs to be that sort of, not as a gatekeeper, but as a putting the officers' advice into practice. So the forum here could vote, for example, to say we want to ban all dogs from all parks, and that could be carried forward. That's, you know, that there could be some sort of amendment at council which says let's be more proactive with having the dog-free areas, having better signage and things like that. So it could be putting those sort of things in. So that's the sort of situation that I would imagine we're thinking about.
So using it constructively, not in a way to destroy them.
The other option would be just to vote something down if in the state it's been put forward, it couldn't be put into practice.
And that would have been helpful for us last time, because we could amend it on that basis you just mentioned.
Do you want any ideas regarding the street names? I was just thinking a simple way to do it would be a QR code, a web address, and the text, "Who was Marriott?"
Oh, yes.
And yes. Well, Eleanor could speak more when she gets here, but it's within her brief to take this forward and to work on that. So suggestions would be welcome, but those are the sort of things I think she had in mind. And there could be something also maybe on street maps, so that when you hover over a name, it gives more information about the good of that person, but also there could be other opportunities and other roads that are named after people that you would want to give the good side to it. So it's, it's a balance, and it's about raising awareness of local history and naming, rather than trying to obliterate parts. So it's about that knowing, because we know in the world that if we forget some of the things that happened in the past, we don't learn for the future.
But then if you only put that out on, if it's about local history, I want the QR code about the other people whose name.
That's what Mike said.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's, and there will be budget constraints on that as well, but Eleanor is taking all those views into account. So I would think that have a word with at the end, if it's not for general debate, and just put forward your suggestions.
I'd also say link to Wikipedia, and it's kind of not controlled by anyone particular.
Sorry, there's an update from Chris.
Can a motion be taken back again to the council then, since there seems to be a lack of clarity in some understandings?
Well, all the motions asked for is the council to consider it,
Okay, so
and Eleanor is considering it. She will update us perhaps.
I missed that, thank you.
If the motion from the forum went to the councillors, who in their knowledge and practical knowledge and experience make amendments, would that amendment then be cast in stone? It must come back surely to the forum just as information, not necessarily for it to go backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards.
I don't think it turns into a huge constitutional battle between Borough and council.
I mean, we as a forum have come up with an idea which we would like to be discussed at the very least.
Yeah, and I think that's, if we use it as a forum sensibly, we don't use it to play silly games.
No,
and we use it sensibly. No, I know you're not. We use it sensibly. So this is something that was important to the forum.
Yeah.
This is what we want. And if the amending power is used sensibly, just not used in a destructive way, it strikes me as a way a bit more bottom-up politics.
Yeah,
but we'll see how it goes.
As long as the information comes back.
Yes,
our
absolutely.
Suggestion has been amended, possibly for this reason and that reason.
Yeah.
Then everybody's clear and knows where we've got. That's what I'm.
That's right. Chris, sorry.
Yeah, so there has been some considering going on. So we've worked with the highways team and the street lane custodian, which I didn't know was a thing, but we have one of those apparently. And heritage team as well. So the sort of key points are changing street names is an incredibly complex process. It needs 80% majority vote of everyone on that street. And you also need to compensate all those residents for the impact it has on them having to change addresses and stuff. So that seems somewhat prohibitive. Additionally, Drax Avenue is actually privately owned, so it's not in the council's purview to do anything with those street signs. That would be down to the owners to take forward anyway. The best we could do is kind of write and suggest if they want to do something. For the other three, so that's Marriott Road, Marriott Place and Draxmont, they are council owned, so we can do something with those signage and those ones. The highways team felt adding something to an existing sign isn't the best way forward, because then it can either be separated or tampered with, is more likely tampered with. So their suggestion is new signs that include the new bit, be that QR code or text or whatever. So there's a cost associated with that. It's about £250 per sign. Where we're at now is we need to talk to our legal colleagues about what wording we might want to use, and then have some kind of consultation with the residents on those streets and anyone else who's interested on what the options are, which might be a QR code and a link, or it might be a bit more detailed text, and sort of come to a consensus on what would be the best way to take that forward. The broader issue about naming streets, we did see that actually Civic has just run a competition survey for people to address street names. Coming over and quite like that idea, so that's something we are looking into. Obviously, we don't build a lot of new streets at the moment, so it's not something that comes up very often. And currently, the street custodian has got a policy of only choosing things, not people, so that we don't run into this controversy in 50 or 100 years' time. So I think with the new Ravensbury one,
I think the last.
So I think the only ones I'm aware of is the one Ravensbury where there's new streets going in. And I think they said they were going to use paper things rather than people for that. Yeah, so we are going to look at running that competition and look at them doing some consultation with those streets.
The last proper council-built house, or houses, flats, was in Ravensbury Ward, the road was named Arbuthnot Road after George Arbuthnot Scott, who is born in Wimbledon and was a cricket player. So it has been, in the last, 6 years that's been there, a disabled flat, although the council didn't put many road pavements in, so the disabled can't get out their properties. But that was, I think, the last.
Yeah, I think it's
Clarion
own council
houses.
Yeah, because I think post Black Lives Matter and every course is actually going to a river. There's a recognition that we need to be a bit more careful about the risks associated with it. I'm sure he was a great cricketer, but if somebody else comes out like that individual, that puts us in a
Not that we're saying that. Good. Okay. Right. So, shall we move on to Craig now and Love Wimbledon?
Right, could you use the...
So can everybody hear me? Yeah. It's all right. Firstly, I just want to say thank you.
Can you move to...
Oh, yes, of course.
You're in shot.
Of course I can. Yeah. to say, in the first instance, thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to attend. This is the first forum I've been able to attend, just because of a long-standing childcare issue, which I now hopefully have resolved. I want to reassure you that I intend to come to as many of these as possible, hopefully all of them, whether I'm speaking or whether I'm just listening. For those of you who haven't met yet, I am the new Chief Executive of Love Wimbledon, which is the business improvement district for Wimbledon Town Centre. Prior to being here, I spent nearly 5 years working in the South Bank, where I was the marketing director for the South Bank as a destination, and also for the business improvement district that operated there. And the organisation I worked for used to put on the community forums and work with the local councillors and the 2 MPs in Lambeth and Southwark there. So I'm very familiar with the format, very supportive of it, and I'm very keen to attend as often as I can. Just to go quickly into a few things that we've been up to and what we've been doing since I started. We started the 3rd 5-year term of the Business Improvement District in April this year, and we did so on, with a business plan that outlined 3 core strategic priorities for the Business Improvement District moving forward. They are, number 1, to create great places, spaces and experiences. Number 2, to work with and support our businesses within the town centre. We are funded through a levy mechanism by businesses in the town centre. And number 3, to create a greener and more sustainable town centre. So turning to the first one, which is about places, spaces and experiences. Hopefully some of you saw our new Friday food and play markets, which we launched this summer on the first weekend of first Friday of August and September, where we had street food, live music, and giant board games in the piazza. We had fantastic feedback from people coming to them. We saw a lot of cross-generational attendance and support, families playing table football, playing Giant Connect 4. It was, I just found it a really, really positive experience, and I was really excited to see the way the community came out and used that. Moving on from that, we're looking now obviously at Christmas as comes up. So we have our winter weekend, which is on the weekend of the 26th and 27th of November. On the 27th of November, we are looking to pedestrianise the area between Queen's Road and Gladstone Road, just for that day, to have some rides, some experiences, various other things. Very similar to, I think, what's happened before. Obviously, this is my first year, so I'm seeing the cycle through in the first year. Then Wimbledon Village will have their Christmas event the following weekend. We've deliberately made sure that we don't clash. And then obviously we'll have our Christmas markets running throughout that month as well, and the markets continue, and we have them the first weekend of every month, and then we have our autumn craft fair as well, which was 2 weeks ago. In terms of supporting our businesses, the big thing we're working on at the moment is a programme which we're calling the Masterclass series. So we received some additional restrictions grants funding, ARG funding, from the government through Merton to work with Merton Chamber of Commerce on running a series of masterclasses for businesses looking at some of the key challenges that they're facing at the moment. So these may include the cost of doing business, obviously, managing hybrid workspaces, how do you recruit post-pandemic, how do you manage the mental health of your staff post-pandemic, how do you make your business more sustainable, all of those kind of core topics and themes. So we're working at the moment on building a programme of speaker events for those sessions, trying to find great speakers to come in and provide this content. So we're working with Merton Chamber. We're hoping to get one of them done before Christmas and the remainder early next year. And then in terms of the greener, more sustainable town centre, I've secured some support from the GLA for Love Wimbledon to be one of the Mayor's Business Climate Challenge partners. What that basically means is working with WSP and Turner and Townsend, following a very successful pilot that operated in the Bankside area of London. They will come in and conduct a sustainability and energy audit of a number of workplaces to provide them with guidance and tools that will help them reduce their energy consumption and become more sustainable. In Bankside, where they did this, most businesses, the target was about 10% reduction in energy consumption, and they got it to about 16 on average, and businesses were saving at the time about £8,500 a year, and that was obviously 2 years ago, so one would think that will go up fairly substantially given the current costs. So we are working now on an engagement plan to work with businesses to get as many of the businesses that are eligible as possible to sign up for this. It's free to them as well, so it's a great opportunity for us to create, sustainable sustainable and strategic impact on businesses and being more sustainable, and we really want that to be a leading point principle for Wimbledon businesses moving forward if we can. And then obviously we continue to green the space as well, so you'll see we've put some giant planters recently in Piazza, just to create some more planting in that area. We put some new railing baskets outside of Ely's and outside of the pavement shops opposite, just to really make the town look as aesthetically pleasing as possible. And then we continue to work on the practical interventions, day in, day out, of keeping the town clean, tidy and safe. So a few stats from September. Our ranger, who's out there day in, day out, identifying these issues, we reported and have managed to resolve 21 graffiti incidents, 29 fly postings, 56 fly tacklings, 9 commercial waste issues, 20 household waste issues, 6 highways issues, and 132 sweeping the litter issues. So those are issues where we've spotted them, and we've either been able to correct them ourselves, or work with the landowner or the waste partner, whoever it may be, to get those resolved. So we're doing that day in, day out as well, which is a very practical dimension of what the bid is here to do. Beyond that, I would say, what I really want to say is that I'm very pleased to be here. As I said, I really want to be here as often as I can. Please come talk to me about any issues or concerns that you have. I've had conversations with some of you already, and I'm very open to doing so and really welcome the opportunity to do so. So thanks for having me, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions for Craig?
On the Hartfield walk,
yes,
we used to have some excellent, cycle walking, the bottle bars. Those when your predecessor changed the whole of Hartfield walk and put in these small ones, they're totally impractical for an adult's bicycle. Is that something you could address for us, please? Because it's great for going shopping with your bike and being able to park it, say, by the supermarket.
I'm happy to look at that, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, yes, I'm a bit concerned about the number of delivery motorbikes that are parked on the bridge.
Yes.
It is an eyesore, and also it's supposed to be for people just dropping off people, and there's never any chance to do that.
Yes.
They are there day in, day out. Is there anything you kind of can do?
Wholly agree, and we share your concerns, and we're working hard on that. Paul's part of this as well. We've sat on a number of panels with the council. They are working with the delivery companies to get them to change their policies and their procedures, because at the moment the drivers are kind of encouraged to go there. So we're finding solutions that will prevent them from going there, and we found alternative spaces for them in St George's car park and in Hartfield car park, and the council are working on some signage, I know, that they want to provide as well, to tell them. And the other thing we have to do is get the delivery companies to instruct them to not park there. The problem is they're not actually employed by them, they're self-employed, so there's a slight challenge there as well. But yeah, it's a strange phenomenon of the days we live in now, but we agree with you, it's not right, and we are working hard with the council to try and get that fixed.
Craig and I have a meeting next Thursday or 2 Thursdays
Yes.
time, where it's on the agenda, an update on what's happened. Because what's frustrating, this predates you coming here. It's been an issue for probably 18 months. And we keep hearing that things are going to change, and they're not changing. So we are putting pressure. It's proved impractical so far.
I'm Tony Rice, one of the councillors at Wimbledon Park. Given Wimbledon is such a wonderful space, and clearly we need to keep it that way and improve it, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there's so little business in Wimbledon. I mean, particularly when we've got fantastic transport links. And is there a role that you could play to support attracting business into Wimbledon?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm really, really passionate about this, and this is something I really want to do. I mean, my background is in destination marketing, so the work I've done in South Bank obviously comes in very handy here. But I just think Wimbledon offers so much, and it's probably almost like too modest about what it does offer. And what we're increasingly seeing, and a useful person to talk here with someone like Jitesh from Heldon Rose, CEO of Heldon Rose, they're a kind of world leader in office redesign transformation. What he will say is that if you look at transport, you look at education, you look at green space, sport, Wimbledon offers all these wonderful things, But if we're going to get more businesses to come here, we need great office spaces as well. And so they're not going to come and occupy, 1980s blocks, which is where things like the Lidl development, which I went through recently, which I think was really good, that's welcome. The one, 147 the Broadway, which is the one down by the Polka, Wimbledon Office Limited, that's a new scheme that's coming. And so as more of these schemes come on, that Walpole Road building that Fortis Clinic and other businesses are in, that's a great office space. So I think, and Wellington House, which I know was a really well-received piece of building design, as well as good office space. The more of those we get in, the more we can, I think, encourage businesses to come in. Because if you've got that, I think you're right, everything else is there. Wimbledon offers everything else. And it is the only tram, train, bus hub in the whole of London. So I just think, yeah, it's great. And then the other thing is how we all connect up the spaces. So obviously our jurisdiction is the town centre, but there is this overarching narrative about what Wimbledon offers. When you look at the village, when you look at the common, when you look at the town centre, when you look at the Dons, you look at the brewery, and all these great things. There's this bigger story there. I think the history, the heritage of the Wombles, which is something I'm very passionate about personally, and what a gift the Wombles are. They are the original restorers and recyclers, and they are ours. We really need to celebrate them more.
Love it. Good. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, yes, it's all very well to try and attract business and everything, but you do also need a community around that to make the centre sustainable, to sort of make it actually also interesting.
Yeah.
So what's happening for the community, for the people living here?
Well, obviously, we're funded.
I mean, these offices, we are not getting any gains, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, we're funded by the business community, but part of what that is obviously is what's in the high street and how we can get people to use the shops and services that are available in the town centre as well, whether they're residents, whether they're businesses, and we'll work with all the other groups to make that happen. But I mean, I think the positive from that perspective is if you look at what's coming, or the closure rates of businesses in Wimbledon are significantly lower than the national average, and they're currently declining, which is brilliant news. Obviously, Centre Court is transforming, and it's some way away from being a finished product, but it's exciting. But even locally, lately, we've seen Rose's Thai Cafe coming very quickly when Fielders sadly closed. Sushi Co, when Moss & Co was, it's a lot of restaurants, but Dan Newman Personal Training, there's a new concierge and sort of keyholder business in by Majestic Wine that's come in. Island Poke arrived. We were very pleased to see the vape shop, which temporarily took residence on Wimbledon Bridge, has gone, and Royal Trinity Hospice is going to be moving into a flagship charity store there now, which is a much more welcome addition to the town centre mix. So the good news is people want to come here, people want to set up businesses here. What we try and do, and to the point that was made earlier, I think the lady's gone now, but the point that was made earlier about, we're very much in the hands of who commercially wants to come into the town centre. So we can't really dictate it, but we do what we can to promote independent businesses, to recognise and tell people we've got enough of this, we really want this. And that's the kind of thing where we really try and encourage it to build that kind of town centre that everybody wants. And having these conversations with people here and then telling me, I've seen this and I really like it, what about this? Really interested to hear those thoughts and ideas from people.
Given your background as being the South Bank, what's your views on trying to improve the town centre with some cultural opportunities which would then benefit those of us who live here?
Unsurprisingly, I'm wholly supportive, and I think actually we do really well. Obviously, we've got the new Wimbledon Theatre, but we've now got the studio as well. So there's increasingly more diverse cultural programming from that perspective. The polka is an absolute jewel to have in this town. It's a rare gift to have such an incredible children's theatre in a town. It's sensational. We supported Mitcham Shine Photography Club with their photography exhibition in Ely's earlier this summer. And this Sound of Vision space, the artist approached us looking for a venue, and we got him to present here as well. So I'm really open and supportive of anything we can do. And the more we can do to bring culture into the community more as well, in terms of accessible culture, I'm really supportive. There's not very many spaces to hold visual art here currently. It's something we miss, and if we can get it done, if it's able to happen, I think the new cultural centre, concert hall, call it what you will, plan has to incorporate that and has to incorporate all those elements. But I think it's really important. I worked with Hatchery Generous on a paper on South Bank where we did a cultural economic impact study of 5 of the venues in South Bank during lockdown, partly to demonstrate that not only is culture actually really good for your health and for your welfare, but actually it makes economic sense as well, because it brings business, it brings spend, it brings visitors, and so it makes sense in all sorts of ways. So I'm wholly supportive and will endorse any attempts to bring more culture into the space.
Thank you.
How do we normally be made aware of what Love Wimbledon has been organising, like an exhibition or so? Because if we don't subscribe to Love Wimbledon, how do we know as a resident what's happening?
Well, I'm happy to come here obviously every quarter, and if you want me to provide a kind of what's on update, I can do that. We do have newsletters, web summit, various other things that you can subscribe to if you want to. There is a consumer newsletter. It's not just for business. So we have 2 different newsletters. One is for business and one is just for anyone who's interested in what's going on in the town centre. And we can obviously get you signed up to that exhibition. It only comes out once a month. It's not too intrusive.
And we've got the contacts on the Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Or I'm happy to use this forum to give an update on that. I wasn't sure what to bring tonight because it's my first one, but if that's what people want to hear, I'm happy to bring that.
No, yeah, it's good.
Sorry.
Street trees, please.
Sorry?
Street trees. Can we have the trees that replaced, that have been knocked down or killed, or it's been a while, and I know it might be an issue with the council, but how can we get the council to actually start putting street trees back where we lost them, and potentially where we can, even if they're in big tubs just initially, to green up the actual streets?
Yeah.
Because nothing's happening on that, hasn't for a long time, and it might be procrastination from the council side, but we need to move it on just to clean the air.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you. I want as green a town centre as possible. So
That's something perhaps Eleanor wants to comment on now. Craig, thank you, Craig, for that.
No, pleasure.
Eleanor, is that okay if we go to you next?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, so I'm Councillor Eleanor Stringer. I'm a councillor over in the Wandle Ward, and I'm deputy leader of the council. So the leader of the council, Ross Garrett, would love to have been here tonight and couldn't. So I'm here to explain a bit about the new administration and our priorities. I'm happy to take any questions. And apologies, I was a little bit. Sorry?
Speak up.
It's really hard to hear. Oh, right. I'm normally, far too loud, but okay. Apologies that I missed the beginning. I've been at another meeting with residents, so if I repeat anything that's already been said, can somebody just say that's a bit boring? I need to say that. So this is a new Labour administration, so in May we had the elections and we had lots of new Labour councillors coming on, and then we had a new leader, Ross Garrett, who I hope you'll meet at some point, with a kind of fresh mandate to govern, and our number 1 focus is about rebuilding civic pride. So I came at the end of what Craig was saying, and we're working really closely with Craig and Love Wimbledon because we think Wimbledon Town Centre and the borough as a whole are places that we should be proud of and we should be investing in, so that we as residents are proud of them and that our businesses want to come here, and I'll come on to that a little bit in the middle. We want to be really responsive to our residents' needs, and we're looking at how we do things like this type of community engagement actually, so that we get, not just the same people turning up, that we're really listening to people and really responding to how they're working. So we'll be coming back to talk about that in the future, and making sure that we're embedded in our local community and that we're innovative in tackling the challenges, because let's be clear, there are going to be some challenges. The past couple of weeks have shown that it's going to be another tough period coming down. So to achieve this kind of pride, we're committed to investing in our place and our people and our services. So the broad priorities of the new administration are this broad one around civic pride, which means a lot of different things to different people. I'm a cabinet member for Civic Pride, and what that encompasses is everything from our local town centres and our local economy, but also our charities and our cultural institutions, as already been raised, and things that make us feel part of our community and really want to be here. A second big area of priority is building a sustainable future, which we'll come on to more. And the third one, which is very personal to the leader, Ross, as well, is about creating a borough of sport. So firstly, on that, nurturing civic pride. So pride in our people, and I said in our place. So I'm really, really proud to have come from here and be raised with my daughter here. And we know that broadly people really are proud of it, but we know that there are things that annoy people and that they want to address, and we want to hear that, we want to make sure we're addressing those. But we also want to make sure that people are being really active in their local communities, and many of you here already today already do that. So we want to make it easier for residents to volunteer, and then you feel more part of your community and more engaged in it. We want to look at what we can do around our town centres and our high streets, and Wimbledon we think is relatively well developed, but there's always more that we could be doing. We think there are other town centres that we know do desperately need a lot of love and TLC, and that's where we're prioritising some of our early efforts. We also have to, as part of this agenda around Civic Pride, focus on some of the basics. We know the basics are important, the keeping the streets clean. Some of you will have seen the announcement that the contract that we have with Veolia is coming up in 2025, and we're going to be meeting as a cabinet next week, and our recommendation coming out of that meeting is going to be that we don't renew that contract with Veolia on the current contract. We're part of a 4-borough contract, and our understanding is the other boroughs will be making similar arrangements, but there'll be more coming on that in the future. So the second priority beyond civil pride is about building a sustainable future. So we want Merton to be recognised as a great place to own a bike or hire an electric car. We want to encourage our residents to use sustainable transport, and we have to face up to the challenges of the climate emergency. We want the first boroughs to call the climate emergency, and we're committed to our targets, but it's going to take a lot of work, again, with you as residents, to achieve that. So part of that is we want to see a shift in planning, so we can get good quality, energy efficient developments built right across the borough. There's so much talk about the cost of living at the moment and the cost of bills, and we know that just making sure that any new homes that we build are truly energy efficient will really help towards that. But we do want to build more properties. We want to be a champion for greater provision of genuinely affordable properties. So our ambition is for 400 genuinely affordable properties to be built on council land, so putting our money where our mouth is, using our land by 2026. So thirdly, a big priority is around the borough of sport. So we have a great sporting heritage here. We have a brilliant sporting heritage here. We've got the very obvious one up the hill. But we've also got AFC Wimbledon, we've got Tooting and Mitcham Club, we've got Mitcham Cricket Club, the oldest continuously played on cricket field in the world. And we also have some amazing local facilities, and we want to explore how we can all work together to create a bigger voice for Merton in sports funding. We think we don't get as much sports funding in as we could be doing, and we want to get that in and drive that investment into the borough through grassroots sport. And this is part linking back to Pride, but also linking back to supporting our residents to have healthier lifestyles and delivering a legacy for our residents. So they're the kind of 3 broader priorities. I'm really happy to talk about some of the Wimbledon specific issues, and just to touch on some of the ones that have already come up from what I had at the end of Craig's session. So there's discussion about making sure that developments work for businesses and whether they benefit residents. And one thing that's always important to bear in mind is it's often the businesses and their staff that keep our town centres going. That it's the businesses and their staff who are using our cafes, using our shops, and if they weren't here, we could go into a spiral of decline. So I really don't like seeing it as a kind of businesses versus residents. I think it has to be about how we all work together. We don't have many massive businesses in Merton. There's a few big ones and then it's a lot of small ones, so we've got to really support them and encourage people to want to do business here and stay here. And around culture, I think culture is absolutely important, and again I think it goes hand in hand with driving the local economy and driving civic pride. So Craig mentioned the proposals for Wimbledon Concert Hall. I don't know how many people here are aware of that. So a charitable trust has been set up, and there's a proposal to see if they can buy a piece of land off of us and build a concert hall in the town centre. As a council, we're supportive of this idea. It has to be a sustainable idea. It has to be something that will actually work and not be some kind of white elephant that then doesn't actually benefit residents. And it has to benefit all of residents, and not just the kind of wealthy few who would want to go and see particular shows. But we've had really, really positive discussions with the team behind the concert hall, and they're going off doing some fundraising and looking at some feasibility around there. But really, really supportive of that. Also got great relationship with the theatre and the polka theatre, and I think we should be advertising it as Wimbledon is as a cultural centre. There are a couple of things that came up. I'm happy to take questions for.
Thank you, Eleanor. Any questions?
I just want to ask, is there a target site for the concert hall?
Yes, so the site they've got in mind, I don't think it's just commercially sensitive, I'll be sure if it is. It's on the Morrison's car park.
All right.
I know, Regina, you had a couple of questions. Didn't you?
Yes, I mean, I had one of my questions is about the line bikes.
Oh yes.
That are being left around the place and
Absolutely.
very often in the middle of the pavement
Yeah.
and very sort of dangerous corners. And
Yeah.
is council trying to do anything about this, that, you know, something can be done?
Yes, so I've Councillor Stephen Allen Breetis is a cabinet member for transport, and so I've been speaking to him about this. There's no easy answer. We do want to make it easy for people to rent electric bikes, and line bikes have, you know, gone through the strategy of basically flooding all of London. Some of the London boroughs have been treating them as fly tipping and just taking them up and chucking them in the bin. We haven't gone down that approach, but we've been looking at what our options are, and it might involve kind of, you know, going through a process of appointing an official provider and so on. So no, I don't have an answer for you, but very, very aware of it. It's a massive bugbear of mine when I'm trying to walk my daughter around and there's a bike in the middle of the street. But we do want to do more so that there are available bikes and e-bikes for residents. But we can come back to you on that.
I was just going to say, I've applied to be a line person who moves line bikes. I'm just going to see what that involves and whether that would be helpful. Whether you could find a group of volunteers who would be happy to move them, because you get paid a bit of money for moving them if you do it through the line app.
Really happy to support that.
Sarah.
Have you tried speaking to Line directly and actually asking them to put instructions when somebody hires a bike, where they should be left?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the most obvious. It happens in other countries. I don't see why it's not happening here.
Yeah, I'm nodding because I completely agree with you. I don't know whether that has explicitly been made, and I can ask Stephen about that and the relevant team, and I can come back. But yeah, the obvious answers would, like you say, be either clear beige where they are left, or clear instructions about, you know, just acceptable locations. I completely agree.
Because I saw a man who was blind. He had a guide dog, and he was trying to not only cross the road. Okay, there were lots of building work as well, but also the line bike right on the corner. I mean, it's hazardous not just for people who can see, but those who can't see. It's an absolute nightmare.
People in wheelchairs, people with buggies, yeah,
Exactly.
100% with you.
But the people who hire them aren't instructed about where they should leave them. So there needs to be something quite obvious about, you know, some instructions about if it's not a dedicated place, then where should you leave it on the pavement? And also make it known that the visually impaired some of them don't want to leave their house because they can't actually get around. It's just making them more aware of the impact of hiring a bike.
And like I say, it isn't just an issue in Merton, it is a cross-London issue. There is other work going on across London basis in this as well, but I'll feedback on all these ideas.
I see three councillors who want to ask a question.
Mine's for a member of the public who can't be here anymore.
Oh yes, okay, yes.
Sorry, this is a question from Chris Goodare, who was here but had to go, but she's written down her question, so it's not me, it's her. She said, having announced the Borough of Sport, the council only refers to what she calls commercial sports. She asked, what are your plans to encourage clubs to drive and contribute to civic pride by having excellent facilities for both young and old? And she specifically wants to push the idea of a sports summit of local clubs. And so she's asked if you might respond to that.
Yeah, she has, and I took I think we were given advance warning that that she wanted to ask this, which is really good of her. So I did. I was in touch directly with the cabinet members. So we have a cabinet member for sport now. It's the first time we've had one, so this kind of gives it some weight. To ask for her thoughts on this. So just give me 1 second, and I'll get up her response on that. See this in a minute. I'm just going to leave you say. But it is about. It isn't just about the big commercial clubs. I suppose it's very much not about that. It's about them using that and unlocking some of the interest that brings to then bring it down to the grassroots to make sure that, you know, people are using our parks. So at the moment we're investing in doing up the multi-use games area in Hayden's Road, for example, so that can be used and accessed more easily by residents to play in sports. It's about working with the local sports to say, well, what funding can we unlock for you so that you can advertise and open up your facilities more to greater residents. It's about really prioritising this and turbocharging it, because I think we haven't taking advantage of the fact that we've got a lot of brilliant open green spaces with lots of sports facilities. We haven't been making sure that they're used. It's working with schools. Schools already do a lot through things like the Emerging School Sports Partnership Programme. But then does that always continue? A lot happens at primary, but it always continue through secondary. And yeah, I suppose the reassurance is this is not just about Wimbledon tennis and AFC Wimbledon.
Regina and Mike.
Yes, because I've been mentioning before the bins in, especially Dundonald Rec and other parks, that there's always a problem with rubbish around it. But I also think that the design of the bins maybe should be looked at, because they've got an opening at the top, so foxes do get into the bins. Yeah. And whether it should be really considered that they should change that the bin should be changed.
So what, they're completely open ones in?
But they've got sort of a round, they've got a round top, but I mean there's a hole in the middle then.
Okay.
And so very often foxes can.
Same to Garfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Garfield will know about some of the issues. So we'll look at this again. I mean, my view, if I was to give you my honest views on foxes, it would end my political career. But yes, I understand. And I think they're getting worse. I swear. I've said it before last time. I swear they're getting worse. I swear they're evolving more skills and able to get into places that they weren't getting into before.
Well, they adopted their lifestyle.
Exactly. So maybe it is we need to look at all the parks. And just for those who don't know, I talked earlier about the contract. That's a contract for street cleaning and collection from residents. The contract for looking after the parks and rubbish in the parks is with a separate company. That's ID Verdi. So that's in a separate system, and we haven't made any decisions on it. It's not, that won't be affected, is what I'm saying.
Can I add some information on...
Hold on.
Sorry.
Mike.
Sorry.
I didn't want to drag on the conversation about line bikes too much, but a lot of that information you're asking about is on the app when you sign up to it. Because I was curious, saw all these about the place, I thought I'd sign up and try using one. And when I went to one location, it said you can't leave the bike here, because that was on a road where it's not allowed to be left. And when you finish, when you sign off at the end, you have to take a picture of the bike in its location. And I understand there is a £20 fine if you've left it in a place that's obstructing the highway. So it'd be interesting to see how many fines are being issued by Lime, and how they're enforcing that, because that's the kind of conversation that we need to be having and need to be having with them to make sure that they are rigorous on that. But it would be good to have some signposted just markings on the floor where they should be left in certain places. When you cycle on one, I was interested to find that when you go past a school or you go through the high part of the state, it restricts you to 5 miles an hour. So it actually slows you down. You can't go any faster than 5 miles an hour past a school. So that there are some safety measures, and they are trying to do something. We need to build a partnership with them, or whoever provides bikes in the borough, so that we get those safety measures in there and those community-focused parts as well about safety for pedestrians and those with buggies and visual impairment and the like.
Can I just go back to the bins? I've been having conversations with waste enforcement about foxes and bins, particularly the one in Dundonald outside the school. I came past the one with my dog, and there was rubbish for about 25 yards all around. There are similar problems at the mouth of Woodside, where the bags are left overnight and ripped apart by horses, and it's spread around. And I have been assured that they are looking at it, and they're looking at it with a view to providing a different kind of bin, which is fox-proof in those areas. So the council is on it, and have been chased.
Can I just say, outside Dundonald School, those bags were actually left by the street cleaners. And of course then the foxes came.
It's the same problem with this.
It was just sort of, but can I, sorry.
Hi, I just want to ask about the statement that Merton made in 2019 about recognising the climate emergency. From what I can see in a lot of planning applications, there is definitely no recognition of the climate emergency. What they do to, or the contractors do as well, to street trees, allowing whole gardens to be removed before a planning application is put in. So when are Merton actually going to do something about the climate emergency and in fact do what they've actually said they promised to do in 2019, because it hasn't been happening yet?
I mean, entirely, we should be being held to account, and this has to be an absolute priority for everyone. Planning is difficult, because planning, we're bound by planning laws and planning guidelines, and local plan is going through this inspection at the
I
moment.
listened to it from 2 to 5 today.
You're more dedicated than I am. You know, and we are, those are the instruments that we need to be using to do that. What's then important is the enforcement. Enforcement is hard, and
enforcement just doesn't seem to happen, and the way planning used to be anyway. Well, I think we discovered there was no enforcement actually at one stage. There was absolutely nobody in the enforcement department.
Right. So I was about to say, so there have been cuts.
It's just not good enough. It's just really, really not.
Yeah. So we need to do better enforcement. What I would say is we have been really going forward with lots and lots of other areas of climate change work, working with local residents. So the Merton Climate Action Group, who are brilliant. There's schemes like Merton Garden Street, which is amazing. Lots of you part of, it's exactly brilliant. But we need to recognise, that's not gonna cut it. It's gonna have to be much bigger changes around buildings, around vehicles, around vehicle use, and that's what we're focusing on. But I hear you're planning. I'm not a planning expert. Like I say, that local plan is going through, and I'm happy to come up to you on that. But completely.
I would only add that I've also been a critic of enforcement in Merton for years. There's a new officer in charge of that group who's been brilliant for the last few months, but things have changed dramatically with regards to enforcement issues we've been dealing with in my ward.
Which officer is that?
It's John Berry. And he really has been proactive. And,
is he permanent or interim?
Sorry?
Is he permanent or interim?
He's permanent.
John Berry. Don't believe us.
I've had exactly the same experience. There's been enforcement in various things inside, and it's happening. So I'm pleased to see that, and I've been impressed by him. He's been very sort of positive.
I think he's head of planning or something like that.
No, it's not that.
It's something.
Planning and building control?
Planning and building control. Sorry,
so speaking about climate change and sustainability, street trees.
I was about to say, I didn't ask you a point on street trees.
Yes, so not only just replacing them, but how you actually tarmac right up to the trunk, or leave a tiny little space around them when you could actually do a lot more. It's still going on. I mean, you speak some fantastic words, and we all would applaud it. But the action on the ground is zilch, Eleanor. I mean, it may not be your department, but doesn't seem to be any sort of coordination between the different departments in the council. Everybody seems to be working on a different tangent, and then it's all pulled together with this, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing the other. It doesn't hold together. You walk in the street, I mean, what can you see that would really give you pride? If you walk down South Wimbledon, streets cages, the cages around the trees are ripped, the trees are kind of gnarled and overgrowing. There's nowhere to pass on the pavement from the way the bicycles are just, the racks are just put outside Wimbledon Station, South Wimbledon Station. Just look at the state of it. You talk about civic pride, but there's nothing really concrete happening to really make you feel, okay, I go off, I've cleaned it a few times. It's not happening. What can we do about the street trees, protecting street trees, giving them the space they need, actually looking after them, whether there's some way of getting everybody in to actually help and water them and look after them. And the planning, I mean, you know where I stand with planning. Planning is appalling. How can we move forward? Because it's great having all these words, but we're not moving forward because the decisions that are being taken counter that. Wimbledon Park, fantastic example. I could go on about all the applications that have been approved under you previously that do not promote climate change, that do not promote the well-being of students or children. We need proper action that is truthful and honest, not just words. We're sick of words, we're tired of words. We need proper action.
So let's talk about some of the actions then, and I'll come on to some of the specifics. So we are doing real things. We're investing in civic pride. So we announced 2 funds, one of which aimed at the charity sector, which is going to massively increase the amount of money that we give to the charity sector, so that we're funding organisations that are benefiting our residents. So I don't know which organisations they are going to be, because there's a bidding process, but we're trying to make sure there's going to be a broad range of different charities. So we're helping small charities, and we know that it's often the smaller charities that tend to support some of our ethnic minority groups who might have been missing out on funding in the past, with setting aside funding for them and giving support for them. So we're going to have a lot of funding around supporting our brilliant community voluntary sector. The other bit of the Civic Pride Fund that we've also announced is going to invest in the projects that are exactly the type of thing that you're talking about, that make you feel happy to live in your area. And that's gone out, and again, we're can't wait to see what brilliant ideas come in, and please take a look at the funding, and if you're involved with a community group, see if you think you fit the eligibility criteria. But we are already doing things. So as an example, just here, the rain garden at the bottom of Wimbledon Hill, I don't know if that's been mentioned yet. So the annoying works that you see at the bottom of Wimbledon Hill is because we're putting in a lovely rain garden there, which is good for the environment because it's somewhere that the water can run down to, and it's nice for the local area.
They're repairing it, are they? Because that's been there for 2 years, isn't it?
The new rain garden being added, and then the fountain at the top, which is being the top of the hill, which we're investing in, renovating, so it's part of respecting our local heritage.
With respect, all of that work was done by the Wimbledon East Hillside Residents Association. They are the ones who actually did all the work in working out what was actually going to go there, and it wasn't very much of Merton's input. It was a lot of local people's input. And what is there now, and I hope it's not permanent, is an awful lot of black tarmac along the pathway, instead of actually putting paving stones. So when something needs to be repaired, you don't have to churn up all the black tarmac. You can lift the paving stones and you can just put them back down. Far better way of actually looking after it. So although I know it's been a lot of trees were taken down as well on that area where they are trying to, I know they say they're trying to improve it, but they also had taken down a lot of trees. So I'm not sure, I know you're going to
I'm saying lots of money.
I think it's Lynn Gordon and Lee Terrafranca that really got that one going.
Thank you so
because
much.
it was a sum of money that they were given to use on that area.
And what I said, we're about working with the community and with residents, and we want to improve that and how we work with local resident associations, those who have those ideas, say, okay, how can we make this happen? I'm sorry to hear about that having taken a long time, and we're a year of
It's not taking a long time, it's doing it properly and not putting tarmac down.
Street trees, yeah, you want to plant more street trees. We work with contractors, and it's hard sometimes to get exactly the right messages across. Yeah. I'll take that back to the relevant cabinet member and find out exactly what actions being done there to ensure that they're not being tarmacked on where possible. But I also, from looking into this a little bit, my understanding is tarmacking doesn't make that much of a difference to the health of the tree or the impact on things.
You've got the trunk and you've got the tarmac right up to it.
And that's
made of oil.
When it's laid, that's not tarmac.
I wasn't the expert, like I say. Well, I actually.
But that was a flippant remark, I'm sorry.
We will be increasing the number of trees that we're planting both in our parks and in our streets, and that is part of our climate commitment. But yeah,
so when are the trees specifically? When are the trees in Wimbledon on the Broadway? We have about 2 or 3, maybe 2 further down the Broadway and one that was knocked down in an accident, at least 4 pits and no trees. And we were told that, all the trees have gone to the parks. I mean, it's ridiculous. When are we going to get the trees? We want some specific action.
Again,
not going back to the office and waiting another 2 years for a
on that, perhaps come back to this on that specific question on the street trees that are missing from the town centre. I think what we've heard also is, and these are difficult things, it's joining up different bits of the council, and we've heard that the trees, or those in charge of the trees section of the council have said you mustn't tarmac up, and yet others are still tarmacking up. And so that's, communicate to them there's a lack of joined up thinking, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we're very happy to feed that back, and I don't have that data, I'm really sorry. I will
No,
find out
but
when that is.
we want a specific schedule. I mean, if we're talking about action,
Yeah.
we don't want to have it so open-ended to the extent that
So
we're just going to have the same questions at the next
Did
meeting.
come up at Range Park last week, and we got some stats from our Green Spaces colleagues. Apparently we planted 2,500 trees last year,
Yeah, but that's
and then
in the
another
past.
500 years.
That's in the past.
It's not just
Chris.
parks, it's streets as
It
well.
was a mix,
It
it
was
was
a mix.
several hundred on the streets, I can't remember the exact, but we can get that.
We're going to work out what's happening with the town centre trees, yeah.
Yeah, we did try and get some for those tree bits that Sarah mentioned when the Queen's, there was some the planting, we said, why can't we move them into these empty pits, but they went into the commit. So yeah, it's something we do need. Hopefully it's a good one.
We'll have an update in the next forum and make sure there's a solution by then. Sorry. There's someone else in class? Mike?
Yeah, I'm a simple soul, and maybe I sort of misheard you, but it seems to me that this administration is going to rely an awful lot on attracting business to Wimbledon. You mentioned business is a basic factor to improvement. Isn't there some sort of little contradiction between that and civic pride? Surely civic pride comes about from the people who live here, and the businesses to be of any worth have to contribute to our well-being and feeling of civic pride, something that we can be proud of living in this area. Now, it seems to me that there are some planning issues and suggested planning applications which have gone through, which quite frankly are very poor and don't contribute anything at all to allowing us to be proud of the building which is going to be built here. Especially that darn thing on the St George's site, which is ridiculous, quite frankly. It's so bad. I don't have the words to express what I think of it. It contributes nothing of worth to the area. And I just think that we need reassurance that all planning applications of whatever size are considered with civic pride and quality involved in the thinking of it. And you know, I just wonder if the council will be able to at least move forward on providing this sort of help for developers, if you like, to enable the rest of us, all the people who live here, not businesses, not people who come into the area and going to shut down at 7 o'clock in the evening, because that's what they do, that's what offices do. You know, you just want some sort of reassurance, and I wonder if the council are in a position to give us any of that.
Thank you very much. It sounds like you're being applauded throughout your speech there by next door. They clearly agree with you. I'll deal with the bigger point first. I think it's a false dichotomy to say that I want to prioritise business over residents. So firstly, that's not what I said, but I think it's a false dichotomy anyway. I think we need to have thriving local economy in Merton. We do need to have thriving local economy in Merton, or else we won't be raising and we won't be doing things. I don't think this is about prioritising business over residents. You know, so residents are our taxpayers, but residents are voters in. You are who we're accountable to, 100%. So you are who we're accountable. But I'm also really proud of our business sector. Like I say, mostly a lot of small businesses, often kind of founders still involved and so on. I'm very proud of those. But I do think that we offer a lot to kind of other businesses who might want to come and make a town centre like ours their base. And I don't think we shouldn't be blocking them. I think we should be supporting them, and then we should be working with them so that they are contributing to the local community as well. And lots of them really, really do. But you're right, a point about planning. So planning law is, you know, a complex issue. Lots of it is set nationally, and then we can set our own local plan. We've had several instances over the past 18, 24 months where Merton Council has the planning committee, because it's a planning committee, it's an independent committee, it's not set by me or Ross as leader or deputy, it's not set by officers, it's councillors who approve the big decisions. Where they have rejected some applications, they have just been taken to the national planning judiciary and then been overturned. So even where we have tried to kind of exercise and influence that, it's just been overturned on appeal, and so then they're still being built. So I think your challenge was, can we work with developers earlier on? And I completely agree, and I think that is something we can do more of. And again, back to having more and better teams who are doing that kind of work, and having a clearer idea about what residents want will really help us to shape that. And I think the work going on with the local plan is the first step towards that. But I hope that provides you with some reassurance that we are here for Merton residents.
I'm not anti-business, but aren't planning committees a reflection of the makeup of the council?
Yes.
Yes, but people are whipped on how to vote. So Labour people aren't told to vote in a certain way, Lib Dems aren't told to vote in a certain way. They have to vote for.
Assure me of that, can you?
Practice
Some of the councils
and
Will.
I just had one thought regarding the office space being community benefit.
Yeah.
Could you have, say, after 8 o'clock, some space is available for the community?
Yeah, or because if someone's taking a big building, can we have like smaller workspaces that local residents can use, for example, or small businesses being set up? These are all things that are kind of in the early stages of us working through, not just in Wimbledon but in other town centres. So we're working with over in Mitcham, we are looking exactly this, trying to set up kind of workspaces where people can come and work more flexibly, and businesses can come and get support, and as I say, make sure it doesn't benefit the wider community.
Helen, can I just add to that? Just that a lot of the businesses that I work with, the leadership teams and staff live in the borough, they work in the borough, they're residents in the borough. There are an awful lot of people that there isn't a dichotomy, they are also residents here. And a lot of them are, particularly the likes of sort of Coty, Kindred, some of our large businesses here, we've got them in touch with the likes of Wimbledon Guild because they're trying to do CSR programs in the community. They're increasingly being told and encouraged to do it as businesses. So we're really keen to make them good corporate citizens as much as they are businesses here too. So yeah, I think it's important that we do that and make sure that the businesses here take pride in being here too.
I'll agree with Susie, but first.
Yeah, no, specifically we just talked about St George's building, which I exercise almost everybody, but there was that consultation with through the whole Development of the Future Wimbledon plan for a long time, and I remember the time when finally the supplementary planning guidance came through and listened to us and put in maximum heights, and it said for that location, still it was too tall, but it said up to 12 floors, maximum of 48 metres, and then it gets through at 53 metres. And I know when I went to the developers, they were like, oh, well, we should get that many floors and we have to go higher because retail needs. So, well, what's the rules? I felt like, why did I bother to contribute in the first place if the rules that the council has written, I wrote about in cabinet and I wrote about it at the time. And, it was just, hopefully it doesn't get through, or hopefully the economics of it don't work anymore. But, that's where, to me, sometimes when I hear, that people are, and I know the Civic Ride alone is Eleanor and I worked on other things in other parts of the borough, but on charities. But it's just, when you put that effort into that planning stuff, it's just so frustrating to feel you're after a view and then just ignore it.
Yeah, planning is going to get everywhere. I suppose the complicated, planning, we want residents to have a voice. Of course, we want residents to have a voice, and then planning law comes in and it becomes more complicated than that. No, I hear you, Peter. Like I say, I wasn't involved in that decision. I wasn't there at the planning committee, but I hear you.
There's another one council. Don't get council second. Steve.
You said just now how independent the planning committee is, but actually sitting through the depressing experience of the discussions over the St George's house, when there was lots of good discussion and so on, and when the vote came, all the Labour councillors just went, vote for it, and all the others voted against it. It didn't look at all independent, I have to say.
Each individual councillor is trained on how to apply the planning guidance, and then they vote, and for some they can take, they can make decisions without the full outcome to them, but every individual...
I have to say, it didn't look that way.
Mike, you're on the planning committee, have you been told how to vote?
I've avoided the planning committee for since 1990 when I was first elected.
Sorry.
But partly because of some of the things that Eleanor alluded to earlier, is that your hands are tied with some decisions, and therefore if an application is rejected and it's overturned on appeal, then you lose that ability to negotiate benefit for the local community because it's out of your hands then. So I found it a very frustrating experience planning, so I've avoided it. But I
assume
think
you'd
it's
have
something
every
in the
rule.
ward. Yes.
I assume you'd have absolutely every rule.
was of course I've got to bear in mind that the councillors, the Labour councillors on the planning committee, all are for wards nowhere near Wimbledon.
Yeah.
So, what do they know about Wimbledon? That St George's House is going to ruin the centre of Wimbledon. It is so dominated. It's ridiculous that it's in the wrong place. There's nothing wrong with big buildings, but it's just in the wrong place. It would so ruin that bit of Wimbledon, there's some very nice bits of that bit of Wimbledon. And the building that they're going to knock down with huge effect on the ecology is no great shape, so I must admit. But what are planning to put up is extremely ugly as well. I mean, I know that's a matter of taste, but I of course have perfect taste.
I have one really simple solution for if you want to have more Labour voices in Wimbledon, so you can have more Labour councillors in Wimbledon by voting for them. And then they live your
Don't make it political now. Come on. Susie, I've broken my rule. Susie's been working so long.
What I was going to say was a little bit more of the same. You told us this evening how much you listen to residents, but I'm very concerned that when you look at plans of this bit of the centre of Wimbledon, where St George's East is, and all around the station, on the internet they are height marked and colour coded, and the vision, the future of the town, the centre of the town, is tall office blocks all the way round, and it's not something that on the doorstep I have heard any resident ever say anything positive about. So I wondered what the council was doing to ensure that the centre of Wimbledon has thriving businesses, but retains its charm, so that people who live here want to live here, and we don't kill the goose that lays the eggs. Wimbledon's more than its transport system; it's also what it is.
Yeah, a thriving local community. So that future Wimbledon consultation was undertaken a number of years now, and they genuinely listen to people about which buildings don't you like, which buildings do you like. There's a recognition that I don't think you've ever had a resident saying yes, I want a 15-storey tower. So I think there is a bit of pragmatism here that we have to have. But they listen to where are the sites that people wouldn't mind actually having knocked down and started again, and where actually do we want to retain some of those low heights. That's why along the Broadway it's still relatively low until you get to YMCA. I would say that's it. Work was done previously. I'm here to talk about us and what we're trying to do now.
Stop St George's is what it could do.
Anthony and David then will.
It's a very quick point on the planning guidance for Wimbledon that you mentioned, the supplementary planning document. The table that sets the maximum height is called indicative building heights, and that's the loopholes that allows them to go higher. So,
it was only put in, the draft before just had maximum height, and I sat in meetings in this building shortly before COVID, before lockdown, talking about we need to have absolute meterage.
It was the thing that people.
I think it was great when they did it.
It was the thing that people really cared about was the heights, and we tried to get the word indicative removed, but sadly it was forced through. So although there is a point that the government can override certain decisions, it's also about us getting our planning rules right, and if we haven't got the right planning rules, we're not going to get the right decisions.
Very good.
Just excuse me if I'm a little bit behind the curve on this, but I mean the discussion around the future Wimbledon consultation, I wasn't quite sure where that got to. Clearly, a lot of it was originally driven by Crossrail 2, which, as far as we understand, has been abandoned now. No money for that. And to me, a lot of it, it's always going to be conflicts between residents about the size of buildings and how much business interest is and how much environmental interest, which we have to factor in, obviously, for the future of our planet as well as our local community. Is there not a need to sort of revisit the sort of vision for what we're actually looking for with this local community, or am I being far too idealistic in terms of actually encapsulating all these different views? Is there an opportunity now, especially since we've got a group of new councillors in the local wards here, to start working with the council, the Labour majority on the council, to actually create that new vision which is going to be more acceptable both to the residents and the businesses and particularly the environment, as many environmental issues as we can as well as within that.
No, I hear that and understand that. These processes take a long time, I think, is the challenge, and the local plan that's going through now is well, started on that many years ago. And this is where I'm going to betray my lack of ignorance about the exact status of all these documents, and I'm going to get corrected by somebody like Anthony. But my understanding is the future Wimbledon master plan was kind of done and was complete, and that is about a future, that is about the kind of, you know, the vision, as you say, the vision for the town centre. And then the local plan that's going through at the moment kind of incorporates some of that and sets some of the town centres.
The future Wimbledon bit is a bit of an odd beast because it's a planning document that applies to the current local plan, but also then is expected to automatically fit with the new local plan that's coming through. So it's a really weird kind of document that has to look both ways.
Is it fit for purpose then? Is the question?
Yeah.
Is
But the timelines just take so long. But what it never ever does is say any application that fits this definitely gets through. So there's always the democratic process. There is always the councillors and the representations. I would say that what we did a huge survey. We did a huge survey of Merton residents after COVID last year, and what we heard from people then is they really like their local high streets and they want their town centres to be thriving. And they really like where they live. What that looks like is going to be different to different people, but I think we need to recognise that, you know, there was genuinely a point where all town centres were at risk. You know, had everybody fully gone to home working, Wimbledon could quite quickly die, and we haven't gone that way. So it's about how we manage. So you're right, things have changed. I hear you that things have changed since we did the future Wimbledon master plan. It is about understanding, looking at, speaking to the developers when they're coming. So that's that point, working with them when they're first coming through with ideas. As I say, us having a vision and then making sure that we do run the planning application process fairly, listen to people and don't whip on councillors as we don't.
Will.
I'm just curious, the current status of the St George's, what stage is it at?
It's been approved and I think got through approval from, it has to then be checked by the mayor, I think it got that, and then it's kind of been out of our hands. It's not gone through that yet, but yeah. So it's gone through the, it has to then go through a kind of check with the Mayor of London, and it's up to the fair.
Dick?
I apologise for taking this as an opportunity to do a bit of advertising. But we are in the process of recreating Friends of Wimbledon Town. It was set up originally when Crossroad 2 was in the mix as Friends of Wimbledon Town Centre, and it was set up as a limited company. That limited company is now being closed, and we are liquidated. And the group of us who were basically running it towards the end, are converting it into a normal community friends group, just like all of the others. We dropped the word centre largely because I think people think of Wimbledon Town Centre as the business community, and so we're Friends of Wimbledon Town, but we are definitely this bit down here, Town Centre and Dundonald Ward and a bit out towards Ames Road and so on. We're trying to create something, and we're very much in sort of development mode. We've just got the holding page for a new website, we've got the bank account and so on and so forth, all those mechanical things that you have to go through. And hopefully we will be up and running. But we have the same objectives as the old group, and that is to find out what's going on in the borough as far as it affects the residents of the borough. So we would want to work with people like Love Wimbledon, the council and everybody else, because you're absolutely right, that the way this works is if we all work together, pull together, and it's a matter of negotiation and so on. And we want to do that, but we want to find out what's happening, whether it's St George's or other things within our area, inform residents, get a feel for whether residents like it or don't like it. I mean, for example, Wimbledon, the Centre Court, I think most people think that if it works out as the way they're planning, we're all kind of for it, I guess. I'm a bit dubious about whether they'll make it commercially viable, but that's just me being cynical. But some things we'll be for and we'll help as much as we can to promote them. But other things we will be against, like the egregious St George's House, because it's going to ruin our area. So, I think what we want to do is to, we have about 1,100 people already on the mailing list as supporters. Please, I have to say, when we get our website working, please join us, feed information into it. If you're fed up with something that's in the Wimbledon town centre area, if you're fed up with it, let us know. We will tell everybody else about it, and there's strength in numbers. If the council are confronted with 2,000 people saying we don't want this, it's conceivable they might listen. Let's hope. So please watch this space. We will invite anyway the 1,100 people we already have on the mailing list, but please do join us. And if you're really feeling strong, what we're going to do is to set up street monitors. So everybody who volunteers for it will get 2 or 3 streets that they will look at the planning applications, and if they, I do this myself, I've done this for a few years now, look at those streets, and if there's a planning application, think, that looks a bit strange, tell the centre, and we'll try and do something about it. So it will be an information bit, and presumably, hopefully, a campaigning bit as well.
Thanks, Dick. I'm not sure it's a question, but do you want to comment on?
No. Other than, yes, we'll support residents' groups so people know what's going on and they're engaged. Yeah.
Hi, just going on about St George's House. I know it's been brought up quite a few times, but I just want to say, with Wimbledon as a town centre, I've been fortunate enough to be born and raised in this lovely town. I just remember childhood memories, walking to town, seeing all the amenities that I could see or want to see. Now, the last 5-7 years, none of my friends really, we may go to the occasional restaurant here, but for shopping and amenities, we're going out of borough. Yeah. I just wondered if you thought with the plans of St George's House and whether you think that is what Generation Z people actually want, or what do you think? Do you think Generation Z people want St George's Hill?
You tapped into a massive demographic shift. That's when I said town centres at risk of dying. That's exactly what I meant. More and more people are going out of town retail parks.
That's been for the last 7 years, though.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's been.
It's not a COVID thing, though, because you tried to make it about COVID thing by the remoteness. It's been like this for a while. Most people go to the Priory Retail Centre or what have you, or they just drive to Westfield nowadays. They don't. The Wimbledon hub wasn't what it used to be. People used to just walk into Wimbledon, and for someone like me who has epilepsy, I can't ever drive. So I want to walk into Wimbledon and feel like, yeah, I want to live here.
Yeah, completely.
This represents me. This has got youth. It's got generations. It's got history. Not that Adam, let's just jump on the district line to go to Westfield.
Completely. What I was blaming COVID was there being fewer office workers around. Saying it's not just locals who use the shops and the cafes, it's the office workers. That's what I was blaming COVID. I was saying all town centres where it was, we have been, we have lots and lots of cafes. I often get asked by residents, what can you do to make sure that we get X shop come here, or that we don't get a chicken shop or a vape shop come here? And the truth is that we have very, very few levers like that at our disposal to kind of direct here. Other than kind of working with businesses and having brilliant business improvement districts like Wimbledon. In answer to your question is, yeah, I want this to be an area where you can get what you want in the town centres. There are the shops there. I was going to say I want to kind of finish with a few key points. One of them was, while I've been here, at least we haven't talked about the centre court plans other than that's just been raised there. And I think that is a really interesting renovation of an area. We'll still have shops. They're planning to keep all the shops they've got in there, but then add in new facilities so that you and your friends will want to go there, to go to some of the new restaurants that are there, and then pop to one of the shops as well, hopefully. I think that's one of the positives. But I hear you, there's been a shift in patterns. We need to kind of recognise that, but then we need to do what we can to try and encourage the types of businesses that residents want.
Because I'm all for there being, fresh businesses, restaurants, what have you, but I don't want them to be too niche where it's just startups, only startups, and I feel that we are missing some magnets here, and before COVID, my friends and I, if we wanted to remain local in South West London, we would go to Wandsworth or go to Kingston, and it even got to the point where we were going to the Putney Exchange. No one 10 years ago was like, let's go to the Putney Exchange. That was just unheard of. And I just feel that it's good to have startups and fresh businesses and what have you, but without having some magnets, there isn't a foundation. And I just feel that has been missing for a while. And if you want Wimbledon to thrive, you've got to have a balance. You can't just have it all on one way or the other.
Yeah, the startups and the businesses, we're talking about different spaces. They would be in offices. You're talking about the kind of retail shopfront units, which entirely, we want to make it work for residents. What I'm saying is it's hard for me to kind of make John Lewis come here. I'd love John Lewis to come here, wouldn't you? But that's not within my impact. Craig, how can we make John Lewis come here?
Get them to close Kingston.
Exactly.
We don't need them here, we've got Ely's. Ely's is doing a fantastic
They have a
job.
brilliant department store.
It's transformed itself over the last 2 to 3 years. It's embracing local deliveries, click and collect, transforming its product ranges. It's a huge asset to the town, and it's thriving in an environment in many towns in which department stores struggle and closing. It's doing extremely well. So we don't need.
I just love that I can go and get hire makeup from there rather than going to Westfield. Can I answer a few? Oh, sorry.
Just one last question, and then I think we.
So just a few points. It's a new Love Wimbledon era, so we don't want to see Love Wimbledon supporting applications like St George's again, please. Secondly, you say that Wimbledon wouldn't thrive or would, the high street would die without businesses. According to Love Wimbledon figures, during the height of the COVID, it was the community that kept the businesses alive. And in fact, there was a very small dent in year-on-year figures based on that, even though the offices were all shut. So I don't think, I'm not against offices and I'm not against business, but what I'm saying is the community really does hold the town up. And finally, if you want to attract people to come to Wimbledon, more retailers, you're going to have to do something about your business rates. Attract them by cutting your business rates and give them some incentive to come over.
Yeah, so we have some limited powers that we can use around business rates, which we use for things like charities, community centres and startups. I don't think I'll be using them for John Lewis, sadly, but no, I hear what... Sorry,
I don't think we're talking John Lewis, we're talking sort of more younger youth type shops.
Yeah, no,
rather than a massive big department store.
On the point of numbers, I think it's about displacement, because there were more residents around during COVID, and now they're less likely to be here and more likely to be in other town centres where they're working if they're not working. But no, it has to work for residents. We're here for residents. I'm elected by residents. This is what the town is here for. I just want to finish with just 2 points that I haven't mentioned so far. Both bad ones actually. One, has mopeds been raised yet? Okay, because I am. So I'm newly responsible for the kind of community safety and social behaviour aspect. So I have been kind of working with officers and look, really, what can we do? And we think it is going to have to come down to some working with the police on some really, really serious enforcement and do some SWAT team enforcement and kind of moving it on. So that's what we're planning. It hasn't happened yet. Other things going on, but yeah, they're an absolute bugbear of mine. I hate them as well. I just wanted to say that's a big priority for me. The other big issue that we haven't talked about is the cost of living crisis. We're living through a huge cost of living crisis. And the council's having to do what it can, and that is taking up a lot of our kind of time and energy and funding. So we've been running events. We ran here a couple of months ago. We got some funding that we'll be getting out to residents. But our main thing is, if you know people who need help, that we have a kind of page on our website where we can direct them to sources of support, both practical and advice and financial. And people need to ask for help because we think it's going to be a really, really, really tricky time. So please do encourage anyone who knows in a difficult situation to reach out to one of the great charities or our council, and we can try and get them some support.
Thank you. Right, thank you, Claire, on that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. I've learned some things tonight, I hope. Please encourage your friends to come to the next one, which is on Wednesday the 30th of November. That date in your diary. And we will see you then. Thank you.
Sorry, Paul, was that the 30th or the
30th, 30.